Horrifying. A destitute single mother trembling in the midst of a raging Boston blizzard late at night hears a faint, feeble cry coming from the darkest corner of the hospital alley. She drops to her knees, pulls aside the sodden blanket, and her heart seems to stop. A 3-year-old girl, lips blue, breath barely there, abandoned in a car seat like discarded trash. No coat, no hat, no mittens, only a crumpled piece of paper taped to the child's chest, scrawled in shaky handwriting. If you still love her, you'll find her here. If not, I've already killed her. Lena Moretti, a woman who has never known a single day of safety in her life, does the one thing no one else dares. She takes off the only coat she owns, wraps the unknown child tightly against her chest, and runs straight into the test. Storm. She has no idea that this single act has just saved a little angel's life and dragged her into the most obsessive, blood-soaked, and dangerously powerful love spiral of the most feared man in the city, Vincent Rossi. And from that moment onward, neither of them can ever turn back. Before we step into this dark, chilling, and mysterious tale, take a moment to subscribe to the channel Mafia Stories and tap the like button. Every single subscription, every like, and every share you give is more than just support. It's a powerful spiritual gift and a deep source of motivation that helps this channel grow, so we can continue delivering compelling, high-quality stories to you every single day. Nothing would make us happier than reading your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us how this story makes you feel, or share which city or province you're listening from while the story unfolds. Now take a deep breath. Let's move forward together and lose ourselves in this unforgettable, emotionally charged story, one that will pull you in, stir your soul, and refuse to let go. The wind howled through the narrow streets of South Boston, like a wounded animal carrying the sharp bite of early October 2025. It was just past midnight on the 3rd of the month, and the cold had already seeped deep into everything, into the cracked sidewalks, into the thin walls of the old triple-decker houses, into the very bones of the people who lived there. Lena Moretti pulled her threadbare coat tighter around her shoulders as she stepped out of the side employee entrance of Massachusetts General Hospital. The coat was her mother's old one, faded navy wool, now patched in 3 places with mismatched fabric scraps she had sewn herself late at night. It did little against the damp chill that clung to the air, the kind that promised frost by morning. She was 29 years old, fair-skinned, like her Irish-Italian mother had been, with dark brown hair pulled back into a tight ponytail that had started unraveling hours ago. Her hands were red and cracked from the industrial cleaners she used every night, the skin splitting open in fine lines that stung whenever she flexed her fingers. She carried a small canvas tote bag, slung over one shoulder inside it, a half-eaten peanut butter sandwich wrapped in wax paper, a thermos of lukewarm tap water, and the silver locket her mother had worn every day until the cancer took her 4 years earlier. The locket held 2 tiny photos, Mia at 2 years old, smiling with missing front teeth, and Luca as a newborn, eyes wide and trusting. Lena touched it through the fabric of her shirt like a prayer she no longer believed in. Her shift had ended at 11:45, but the charge nurse had asked her to stay an extra 15 minutes to mop up a spill in the trauma bay. "You're the only one still here, Lena. Be a dear." Lena had nodded, voice soft and polite as always. "Of course, ma'am." She never said no. Saying no meant fewer hours, fewer dollars, and the rent was already 2 weeks late. The landlord, Mr. Delgado, not related to the dangerous Delgado family that controlled parts of the city but mean enough in his own small way, had left a note taped to her door last week. "Pay by the 10th or you're out. No excuses." She had stared at the paper until her eyes burned, then folded it carefully and tucked it into her pocket, like evidence she might need one day. The walk home was 4 blocks uphill past shuttered bodegas and chain-link fences rattling in the wind. Streetlights flickered overhead, casting long shadows that made her quicken her pace without realizing it. Her shoes, once white sneakers from a discount store clearance rack, were now gray and worn so thin she could feel the pavement through the soles. Every step sent a dull ache up her calves, a reminder that she had been on her feet for 12 straight hours. Her body felt heavy, as if gravity had doubled just for her tonight. Sleep had become a stranger. The last full night of rest she could remember was months ago, before Luca's ear infection kept them both awake for 3 days straight. She reached the triple-decker on East Broadway, its peeling gray paint glowing sickly under the street lamp. The front steps sagged, and the railing wobbled when she gripped it. Up 3 flights to the attic apartment, technically a converted storage space, with one small window that never quite closed all the way. The rent was $850 a month, more than half of what she brought home after taxes. She paid the electric bill in installments, skipped meals so the kids could eat, and prayed the heat stayed on through winter. Inside, the single room smelled of damp plaster and the faint sweetness of baby shampoo. Mia and Luca slept on the pull-out couch that served as their bed. Mia, 4 years old, lay curled on her side with her thumb in her mouth, dark curls spilling across the pillow. Luca, too, sprawled on his back, one chubby arm flung out, breathing in soft little puffs. Mrs. Kowalski, the 72-year-old Polish widow downstairs, had watched them again tonight. She never asked for money, only a thank you, and the occasional loaf of homemade bread Lena managed to bake on her days off. "They're good kids," Mrs. Kowalski always said, patting Lena's hand. "You do right by them." Lena knelt beside the couch, brushing Mia's hair back from her forehead. The little girl's skin felt cool, too cool. The room was freezing. The radiator clanked uselessly, no warmth coming through. Lena pulled the thin blanket higher, tucking it around both children, then wrapped her own coat over them like an extra layer. She sat on the floor for a long moment, back against the wall, knees drawn up, staring at the ceiling where water stains bloomed like dark flowers. Tears came quietly, the way they always did when no one could see. She wiped them away with the sleeve of her uniform, ashamed of the weakness even in solitude. How had it come to this? She had graduated high school with honors, dreamed of community college, maybe nursing like her mother had wanted. But then her mother got sick, the medical bills piled up faster than any savings, and her father, long gone since she was 12, never sent a dime. She had dropped out after 1 semester to work full-time. Met a boy who promised forever. Had Mia at 25, then Luca at 27. The boy left when Luca was 6 months old, said he couldn't handle the responsibility. Now it was just the 3 of them against the world, and the world was winning. She rose stiffly body, protesting every movement, and changed out of her uniform in the tiny bathroom. The mirror showed a face she barely recognized. Hollow cheeks, dark circles under hazel eyes, lips chapped from constant licking against the cold. She looked older than 29, worn thin like fabric washed too many times. Malnutrition had carved subtle lines around her mouth. She ate last so the kids could have seconds. Sleep deprivation made her hands tremble when she brushed her teeth. She slipped into an old t-shirt and sweatpants, then crawled onto the narrow mattress on the floor beside the couch. The sheets were clean, she made sure of that, but threadbare. She pulled the spare blanket over herself, shivering as the wind rattled the window pane. Tomorrow, she had another shift at the hospital from 3 in the afternoon until midnight. Then a morning cleaning job at a lawyer's office in Back Bay for $60 cash. 2 buses each way, transfers in the cold, no time to rest. She closed her eyes, willing sleep to come, but her mind raced. What if the landlord followed through? What if child services got involved because the apartment was too cold, too small? What if Mia's cough turned into something worse, and she couldn't afford the copay? The thoughts circled like vultures tearing at her insides. She pressed a hand to her chest, feeling her heart hammer too fast, too hard. Panic rose sharp and hot in her throat. She swallowed it down, forced slow breaths. Not tonight. Not in front of the kids. They needed her strong, but inside the despair grew heavier, a weight that pressed against her ribs until she could hardly breathe. She was so tired, so bone-deep, soul-weary tired, that sometimes she wondered if disappearing might be kinder for everyone. The thought shamed her instantly, violently. She curled tighter, hugging her knees, tears slipping silently into the pillow. She was 29 years old, and already felt like she had lived 3 lifetimes of struggle. Invisible, powerless, forgotten. Yet somewhere deep beneath the exhaustion, a stubborn spark refused to die. She thought of Mia's laugh when Luca made silly faces of the way they both reached for her hand when crossing the street. That spark kept her getting up every day, kept her saying yes, ma'am, to bosses who barely looked at her, kept her smiling through the pain. It was small, fragile, but it was hers. Outside, the wind screamed louder, promising another brutal night. Lena finally drifted toward uneasy sleep, unaware that in a few short hours a single desperate cry in the storm would shatter her world and begin to rebuild it in ways she could never have imagined. She did not know that a man named Vincent Rossi, wealthy beyond measure, powerful in ways that terrified most people, fair-skinned and American-born, carrying guilt that ate at him like acid, was about to have his life upended by the same storm. Nor did she know that the child she would soon find freezing and alone belonged to him, and that the moment he saw her holding that little girl, something inside him would crack open wide, flooding with a fierce, consuming love he had never allowed himself to feel before. For now, though, she was only Lena Moretti, poor, resilient, invisible. And the night stretched on, cold and merciless. The blizzard struck Boston just after 1 o'clock in the morning on the 4th of October, 2025, as if the sky itself had decided the city had not suffered enough. Wind tore down from the Atlantic in vicious gusts, driving snow sideways so thick that the streetlights became pale smudges. Lena Moretti had just finished her extra 15 minutes in the trauma bay, kneeling on tile, still slick with disinfectant scrubbing until her shoulders screamed when the charge nurse finally waved her out. "Go home before you get stuck here," the woman said, not unkindly. Lena murmured a quiet, "Thank you, ma'am," her voice so soft it nearly vanished under the roar outside. She pushed through the heavy side door reserved for staff and maintenance, the one that opened onto a narrow alley between the hospital's main building and the parking garage. The cold slammed into her like a fist. Snow stung her cheeks, instantly melting against skin already raw from the night's chemicals. She pulled the hood of her mother's old coat over her head, but the wind ripped it back almost immediately. Her tote bag swung against her hip. Inside, the thermos rattled against the uneaten half sandwich she had saved for breakfast. She took one step, then another, head down, counting the blocks in her mind, to keep from thinking about how little warmth remained in her body. That was when she heard it. A sound so small it should have been swallowed by the storm, thin, broken, almost more breath than cry. Lena froze. Her heart stuttered once hard. She tilted her head, listening past the howl of wind and the distant rumble of a snowplow somewhere on Cambridge Street. Nothing. Only the white roar. She told herself it was exhaustion playing tricks. 12 hours on her feet, 4 hours of fractured sleep the night before, hunger that had become a constant low ache in her stomach. She took another step toward the mouth of the alley. Then it came again. Clearer this time. A child's cry, weak, desperate, the kind that had been going on too long and was running out of strength. Every instinct Lena had ever possessed as a mother surged forward before her mind could catch up. She dropped the tote bag into the snow without a second thought. Her legs moved on their own, carrying her back toward the hospital wall, past the overflowing dumpster, past the emergency generator humming under its metal shroud. The cry was coming from the shadowed corner where the overhang met the brick, barely sheltered but enough to keep the worst of the wind from tearing straight through. There, half buried under a drift that had formed against the wall, was a child's car seat. Plastic, once bright red, now crusted with ice. A small pink blanket, sodden heavy, draped over it. The blanket moved. Beneath it came that terrible fading whimper. Lena dropped to her knees so fast her shins cracked against the frozen concrete. Pain flared bright and hot, but she barely felt it. Her hands, red-cracked, trembling, reached out and pulled the blanket aside. A little girl. 3 years old, maybe. Dark curls plastered to her forehead with melting snow. Tiny face pinched tight from cold and exhaustion, lips blue at the edges. She wore a thin fleece onesie soaked through no coat, no hat, no mittens. Her small chest rose and fell in shallow, uneven breaths. One mittenless hand twitched weakly, reaching for nothing. Lena's breath caught in a sob she didn't let out. "Oh God," she whispered. "Oh, sweet God." She slid her arms under the child, careful, so careful, and lifted her out of the seat. The girl was terrifyingly light, as if hunger and cold had already stolen half her weight. Lena pressed the small body against her chest, feeling the frantic flutter of a heartbeat against her own. The child whimpered once more, then went limp, too exhausted even to cry. Without hesitation, Lena shrugged off her mother's coat, the only thing between her and the storm, and wrapped it around the little girl. The wind immediately sank claws into Lena's back through the thin hospital uniform, but she did not feel it. She stood cradling the child close and ran. The side door was locked from the outside after midnight. She pounded on it with her elbow, shouting, "Help! Please open the door." Snow flew into her mouth, her eyes. No answer. She turned, staggering back toward the main emergency entrance, 200 feet away, but it felt like miles. Her shoes slipped on ice. She nearly fell twice each time, tightening her arms around the child so the girl's head stayed protected against her shoulder. Inside the ER waiting area, the sudden warmth hit like a slap. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. A security guard looked up from his phone, startled. "Ma'am, hypothermia," Lena gasped, voice shaking. "Little girl. Found her outside. She's freezing." Nurses rushed forward. Someone took the child from Lena's arms. Lena's knees buckled the moment the weight was gone. She caught herself on the edge of a chair, dizzy vision swimming. A triage nurse, older, kind-eyed, grabbed her arm. "Sit. You're shaking like a leaf." Lena obeyed because her legs would not hold her. She watched them wheel the little girl through the double doors into the treatment bay. Blankets, warm, saline, heated air. The child's eyes fluttered open for a second, huge, dark, terrified, then closed again. Lena sat there in her soaked uniform, arms wrapped around herself, coatless, shivering violently now that adrenaline had receded. Her teeth chattered so hard her jaw ached. A volunteer brought her a scratchy hospital blanket. She pulled it around her shoulders with numb fingers. Minutes passed, or hours. Time blurred. Then the double doors opened again. A man strode through, tall, broad-shouldered, fair-skinned, wearing a black wool overcoat that looked impossibly expensive, even dusted with snow. His hair, dark, slightly long, was wet and disheveled. His jaw clenched so tight a muscle jumped in his cheek. His eyes, steel-gray burning, swept the waiting area and locked on Lena. Vincent Rossi. Even Lena, who lived on the edges of the city's shadows, knew the name. Real estate developer on paper. Owner of half the new luxury condos rising along the seaport. But whispers said more control, fear, power that moved in silence. She had never seen him in person. Until now. He crossed the room in long strides and stopped in front of her. Up close he was even taller, presence overwhelming. But his hands, when he removed his gloves, trembled. "You found her," he said, voice low, rough-edged with something raw. Lena looked up at him, throat dry. "Yes, sir." He dropped to one knee so their eyes were level. "Where? Outside. The side alley. In a car seat. She was so cold." His gaze searched her face, taking in the cracked lips, the hollow cheeks, the way her shoulders hunched against the cold, still clinging to her bones. Something flickered in those gray eyes. Not pity. Recognition. As if he saw every night she had gone without every meal, skipped every tear, swallowed in the dark. "Thank you," he said, and the words came out broken. "You saved her life." Lena's vision blurred. She shook her head. Anyone would have. No, he cut in fierce. Not anyone. A doctor appeared then. Dr. Harper, pediatric emergency. "Mr. Rossi, she's stable. Core temperature is climbing. Mild frostbite on fingers and toes, but she'll recover. We're moving her to the PICU for observation." Vincent stood. His posture changed shoulders, squaring the powerful man, reasserting control, but his eyes stayed on Lena. "I need to see her." "Of course." He hesitated, looked back at Lena. "You're coming with me." She blinked, confused. I should go home. My children. Someone will drive you after. But right now she needs the person who kept her alive." His voice dropped. "Please." Lena's heart pounded so hard she felt dizzy again. She nodded once, small and timid. They walked through the corridors together. Vincent's stride was long. She had to hurry to keep up, blanket clutched around her like armor. Nurses glanced at him, then quickly away. Fear, respect, both. In the PICU room, the little girl Sophia, the chart said, lay under warming lights, wrapped in heated blankets, tiny monitors beeping softly. Her cheeks had color again. Her eyes opened when Vincent leaned over the crib rail. "Daddy," she whispered, voice cracked. Vincent's face crumpled. He reached through the rails, brushed a curl from her forehead. Tears, silent, unashamed, slid down his cheeks. Lena stood a few steps back, watching heart tearing itself apart. This man, wealthy, feared, untouchable, was crying like any father who had almost lost everything. Then Sophia's gaze found Lena. She lifted one small bandaged hand. "Mama," she breathed. The word landed like a blow. Lena's knees nearly gave out. She stepped forward instinctively, took the tiny hand. Sophia's fingers curled around, hers weak but trusting. Vincent looked at Lena over the crib. His eyes were red raw, but something else burned there now, fierce, consuming, almost violent in its intensity. Not gratitude alone, something deeper. Something that terrified him as much as it consumed him. He had spent years building walls of money and power to keep the world at bay. Guilt had lived in his chest for so long it felt like part of his heartbeat, guilt over choices made blood on hands he could never wash, clean a daughter he had failed to protect. And now this woman, thin, shivering, coatless, eyes wide with exhaustion and quiet strength, had done what no amount of money or fear could do. She had saved Sophia, and in doing so she had cracked open the one place Vincent Rossi had sworn never to let anyone touch again. He did not know her name yet. He did not know she had 2 children waiting in a freezing attic room. He did not know she had not eaten since yesterday afternoon. But in that moment, staring at her across his daughter's crib, Vincent felt something surge inside him, overwhelming, burning, unstoppable. Love. Fierce. Immediate. Terrifying. And it terrified him because he knew with the certainty of a man who had lost too much that once he let it in there would be no going back. Outside, the storm raged on. Inside, 2 broken lives had just touched, and neither would ever be the same. The pediatric intensive care unit at Massachusetts General was hushed at 3:30 in the morning, the kind of quiet that felt sacred and fragile. Monitors beeped in soft, steady rhythms. Overhead lights had been dimmed to a gentle amber. Sophia lay in the heated crib, small chest rising and falling under layers of thermal blankets, her tiny fingers no longer blue but pink again. The frostbite on her fingertips had been treated. The doctor said she would keep every one. She slept deeply now, exhaustion finally claiming what cold and fear had not. Lena stood a respectful distance from the crib rail, still wrapped in the scratchy hospital blanket, her soaked uniform clinging to her thin frame. Water dripped from the hem of her pants onto the polished floor in small, silent pools. She had not moved since Sophia whispered that single word, "Mama," and the sound of it still echoed inside her skull like a bell struck too hard. Her arms ached from holding the child through the storm. Her back throbbed from hours bent over mops and buckets. Yet she could not look away from the little girl's peaceful face. Vincent Rossi remained on the opposite side of the crib. He had removed his overcoat, handed it without a word to a hovering nurse, who folded it over her arm as if it were made of glass, and now stood in a charcoal cashmere sweater that looked softer than anything Lena had ever touched. The fabric stretched across broad shoulders. A faint bandage peeked from beneath the cuff of his left sleeve, fresh blood spotting the white gauze in a small, dark circle. He had been hurt before coming here. Lena noticed it the moment he entered the waiting room, the way he favored his left side, the careful way he breathed. But he had said nothing about it. Men like him, she supposed, did not complain of pain. He reached through the rail again, brushing Sophia's cheek with the back of his knuckles. The gesture was so tender it stole Lena's breath. This was not the Vincent Rossi the city whispered about in lowered voices, the man whose name alone could silence a room. This was a father who had come close to losing the only light left in his life. Sophia stirred. Her eyelids fluttered. She looked first at her father, then past him, straight to Lena. A small, cracked smile curved her lips. "Mama," she whispered again, voice hoarse but certain. Lena's knees buckled. She caught the rail just in time, knuckles whitening. The room tilted. Dizziness swept through her, sharp, nauseating. She had not eaten since yesterday's lunch break. Sleep had been 3 fitful hours the night before. Now the world narrowed to that one word spoken by a stranger's child, and it tore something open inside her chest. Vincent's head snapped up. His gray eyes locked on hers, searching fierce, almost frantic. "She knows you," he said, voice low and rough. "She's never called anyone that. Not even—" He stopped. Swallowed. The unspoken name hung between them like smoke. Lena shook her head, small and helpless. I'm not— I just found her, sir." She was scared. That's all. But Sophia's small hand stretched toward her through the rail. Lena stepped closer without thinking. Their fingers met, cold little ones against Lena's cracked warm ones. Sophia sighed a tiny sound of pure trust and closed her eyes again. Vincent watched the exchange. Something violent passed across his face, remorse so deep it looked like physical pain guilt that twisted his features into something almost unrecognizable. He had built an empire on control, on never letting anyone close enough to wound him. Yet here was this woman, thin, to the point of fragility, shivering in wet clothes that smelled faintly of bleach and desperation, who had run into a blizzard without hesitation, who had given her only coat to a child she did not know, who now held his daughter's hand as if it were the most natural thing in the world. He felt it then, the first brutal surge. Love. Not soft, not tentative. Burning, immediate, overwhelming. It crashed through him like a wave breaking over stone, tearing at every wall he had spent 38 years erecting. Suspicion flared first. Who is she? Why was she there? Is this some kind of setup? But it died as quickly as it rose. He looked at her hollow cheeks, the way her shoulders hunched against cold she could not escape. The quiet dignity in her posture, despite everything and suspicion, turned to something far more dangerous need. He needed her to stay. Needed her light in the darkness he had made of his life. Needed her goodness to remind him there was still something worth saving inside him. The conflict inside him was savage. Guilt roared. "You don't deserve this. You destroy everything you touch. You left Sophia's mother because your world would have poisoned her too. And now this woman, poor, exhausted, carrying burdens you can't even imagine, has saved what you could not protect. How dare you want her? How dare you feel this?" Yet the want would not be silenced. It burned hotter with every second. She stood there holding his daughter's hand. A soft knock interrupted. "Doctor." Harper entered, chart in hand. "Mr. Rossi, Sophia's vitals are strong. She'll sleep through the night. You should rest too." Her gaze flicked to Lena. "And you, miss, you're pale. When did you last eat?" Lena blinked, startled. Yesterday. "I'm fine, ma'am." "You're not the doctor," said gently. "Sit. I'll have a tray brought." Vincent spoke before Lena could protest. "She stays here tonight. In the family suite down the hall. Whatever she needs, food, dry clothes, a bed." Lena's eyes widened. "No, sir, I can't. My children," Vincent turned to her fully. "Tell me where they are. I'll send someone to bring them here. Or take them somewhere safe until morning. You're not going back out in that storm." Her heart hammered. Fear spiked, sharp, cold. Who was this man to decide her life? Yet beneath the fear came something else. Curiosity. A tiny, dangerous spark of wonder. No one had ever offered to help her like this. No one had ever looked at her as if her exhaustion mattered. "I live on East Broadway," she whispered. "The triple-decker. 3rd floor. Mrs. Kowalski is watching them. She's kind. But I can't impose." "You're not imposing," Vincent said. His voice was steel wrapped in velvet. "You saved my daughter. Anything you need, anything is yours." He pulled out his phone, made a quiet call. "Tony. East Broadway, triple-decker third floor. 2 children, Mia and Lena Moretti. Bring them here, discreetly, and make sure the sitter is compensated generously. He ended the call, eyes never leaving Lena's. They'll be here within 30 minutes. Lena swayed. The room spun. She gripped the rail harder. You know my name. I heard the nurse say it. A faint, almost pained smile touched his lips. Lena Moretti. She nodded mutely, throat too tight to speak. Vincent stepped closer, close enough that she caught the faint scent of expensive cologne and snow. He lowered his voice. You don't have to be afraid of me. Not tonight. Not ever. But she was afraid. Afraid of the warmth spreading through her chest at his nearness. Afraid of how badly she wanted to believe him. Afraid of the unfairness of it all, that a man who could summon cars and doctors with a single word had never known nights like hers, nights when the wind came through the cracks and the children cried from hunger. Outside the hospital, the storm still raged. But inside Vincent's world, another storm had begun, one of violent longing, gnawing remorse, and a love so fierce it felt like punishment. He looked down at Sophia, then back at Lena. She called you Mama, he said quietly, and the way she looks at you. I've never seen her look at anyone like that. Not even me. Tears filled Lena's eyes. I'm nobody, sir. I'm just me. Vincent's jaw tightened. Inside him, the conflict raged harder. You are everything he wanted to say. You are the kindness I stopped believing existed. You are the reason my heart is beating out of rhythm right now. Instead, he said, you're the woman who ran into a blizzard for a child you didn't know. That makes you more than anybody I've ever met. A nurse arrived with a tray, hot soup, bread, tea, a thick turkey sandwich. Lena stared at it as if it were a mirage. Her stomach twisted with sudden, violent hunger. Eat, Vincent said softly. Please. She sat slowly, as if afraid the chair might vanish, and took the spoon with trembling hands. The first sip of soup burned her tongue, but it was warm, real. She ate carefully, tears slipping down her cheeks and into the bowl. Vincent watched her. Every bite she took felt like a knife in his chest. How long had it been since she had eaten a full meal? How many nights had she gone without, so her children could have something? The disparity between them, the private jet he kept at Logan, the Beacon Hill townhouse with heated floors and 24-hour security. The life where hunger was a choice he had never made struck him like a physical blow. Remorse clawed deeper. How many people had suffered in the shadows of his power? How many had he never seen? And now this woman, thin, shivering eyes, wide with shock and guarded hope, was sitting in front of him eating because he had asked her to. He turned away for a moment, pressing a fist to his sternum as if he could physically hold his heart together. The love burned hotter, passionate, consuming, terrifying. He wanted to wrap her in his coat, carry her out of this cold life, shield her from every wind that had ever cut her. He wanted to kneel at her feet and beg forgiveness for every moment the world had let her suffer while he lived in excess. But he stayed silent. For now, 30 minutes later, Tony knocked softly. Behind him stood Mrs. Kowalski, holding Mia's hand and carrying Luca on her hip. Both children were bundled in coats too big for them, borrowed from neighbors, Lena realized with a pang. Mia saw her mother and ran forward. Mama Lena dropped to her knees, arms open. Mia crashed into her. Luca reached from Mrs. Kowalski's arms. Lena held them both, sobbing quietly into their hair. Vincent watched from the doorway. The sight of her, surrounded by her children's face, buried in their small bodies, shattered what remained of his restraint. He loved her. Fiercely. Instantly. Irrevocably. And the knowledge terrified him more than any rival, any gun, any loss he had ever faced. Because now he knew he would do anything to keep her safe. To keep her. The family suite at Massachusetts General was nothing Lena Moretti had ever imagined a hospital room could be. Soft lighting spilled from recessed fixtures, walls painted a warm taupe instead of sterile white, a small sitting area with 2 plush armchairs and a low coffee table. A fold-out sofa bed had already been made up with crisp linens and extra pillows. A private bathroom waited behind a frosted glass door, clean towels folded in neat stacks. A shower with actual hot water pressure. On the table sat a silver tray, fresh fruit, yogurt, granola, a carafe of orange juice, and a small vase of white roses someone must have delivered while they were in the PICU. Lena stood in the doorway, still clutching the hospital blanket around her shoulders. Mia and Luca pressed against her legs. The children stared wide-eyed at the room, too tired and overwhelmed to speak. Mrs. Kowalski had kissed their heads goodbye at the elevator, whispering to Lena, "Call me if you need anything, child. Anything at all." Then she was gone, leaving Lena alone with her babies and the man who had just upended her night. Vincent Rossi closed the door behind them with a soft click. He had shed his sweater somewhere between the PICU and here now, wore only a black dress shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, the bandage on his left forearm more visible. A fresh spot of blood had seeped through again. He moved carefully, hiding the pain, but Lena saw it in the tight set of his jaw. "Make yourselves comfortable," he said quietly. "The sofa pulls out if you want to lie down. There's a changing table in the bathroom, diapers and wipes in the cabinet. Nurse brought them up. Anything else you need, just ask." Lena's throat closed. She looked at the roses, the fruit bowl, the clean white sheets. Things she had not seen, let alone touched in years. Her own apartment had one set of sheets washed so many times they were nearly transparent. The children's pajamas were hand-me-downs from neighbors. Luca's still had a hole at the knee she had not yet mended. "Thank you, sir," she whispered. Her voice trembled. "But we can't stay. The storm might let up soon." "I have work tomorrow afternoon." Vincent turned to face her fully. His gray eyes were stormy, conflicted. "You're not going anywhere tonight. Not with 2 small children and no coat. Not after what you did for Sophia." He paused, voice dropping. "And not when you're shaking so hard I can hear your teeth chattering from here." Lena looked down. She was shaking, had been since the alley. Hunger, cold, shock, fear, all of it crashing together. Mia tugged her pant leg. "Mama, I'm cold." The words pierced Lena like glass. She knelt immediately, pulling both children into her lap despite the ache in her back. "I know, baby. Mama's got you." She rubbed their arms through their thin coats, trying to generate warmth with friction alone. Vincent watched for a long moment. Then he crossed to the thermostat and turned the heat up another 5 degrees. Warm air sighed from the vents almost instantly. He moved to the armchair, sat slowly, wincing as his side pulled and leaned forward, elbows on knees. "I don't know how to thank you," he said. "Words aren't enough, but I can keep you safe tonight. That's a start." Lena met his gaze. Fear flickered in her chest, deep, instinctive. This man was powerful in ways she could only guess at. Yet there was no menace in his eyes now. Remorse so thick she could almost taste it. She swallowed. "Sophia, is she really okay? She's sleeping. Stable. Because of you." His voice cracked on the last word. He looked away, jaw working. Inside him the storm raged harder. Guilt clawed at his ribs. "You let her mother walk away because you were too afraid to fight for her. You let Sophia disappear for 3 days because your enemies knew exactly where to strike. And now this woman, starving, exhausted, holding her own children like they might vanish, has given more in one night than you've given in years." The love burned fiercer. He wanted to reach across the space between them, pull her into his arms, shield her from every cold night she had ever endured. But he stayed seated, forced himself to breathe. He had no right. Not yet. A soft knock. Tony entered, tall, broad, silent. He carried 2 duffel bags. Clothes from the house boss. Women's sizes small and medium. Kid sizes too. Warm stuff. Blankets. Toys. He set them down, nodded to Lena with careful respect, and left without another word. Vincent gestured to the bags. "Take what you need. There's pajamas, robes, socks. Everything's clean." Lena stared at the bags as if they might disappear if she blinked. She rose slowly, legs unsteady, and opened one. Soft fleece pajamas in pale blue. Thick wool socks. A robe lined with sherpa. Brand new tags still attached. She touched the fabric, soft as a dream, and tears spilled over before she could stop them. I can't accept this," she whispered. "It's too much." Vincent stood, crossed the room in 2 strides, stopped just short of touching her. "It's nothing," he said roughly, "compared to what you gave tonight. Please, for the children, for you." She looked up at him, hazel eyes wide, shimmering. Confusion warred with gratitude, fear, with a tiny forbidden spark of curiosity. Who was this man who could command warmth and safety with a single word? Why did he look at her as if she were something precious? She nodded once, small, timid. "Thank you, sir." He exhaled, shoulders dropping a fraction. "Call me Vincent. Or Vince. Whatever feels right." "Vincent," she repeated softly. The name felt heavy on her tongue. He turned away quickly, as if the sound of his name and her voice had struck him. He moved to the window, stared out at the swirling snow. His reflection stared back, hard lines, shadowed eyes, a man at war with himself. Lena changed the children first. Mia and Luca were too sleepy to protest the new pajamas, soft, warm, smelling faintly of lavender detergent. She tucked them into the sofa bed, pulled the thick comforter over them. They sighed in unison, small bodies relaxing for the first time in hours. Lena kissed their foreheads, whispered lullabies until their breathing evened. Then she slipped into the bathroom, closed the door, leaned against it, heart pounding. She peeled off her wet uniform, thin cotton pants, stiff with cold shirt clinging to her ribs. Her body was thin, too thin. ribs visible beneath pale skin, collarbones, sharp arms bruised from carrying heavy buckets night after night. She turned on the shower. Hot water cascaded, real pressure steam rising like a promise. She stepped under it and cried. Silent, wrenching sobs that shook her whole frame. The water washed away snow and bleach and tears. For the first time in years, warmth surrounded her completely. When she emerged, wrapped in the Sherpa robe, hair damp and loose, she found Vincent still at the window. He turned, saw her, froze. The robe swallowed her small frame, but the color had returned to her cheeks. Her eyes, red-rimmed but clear, met his. Something shifted in the air between them, heavy, electric. "You look—" He stopped, swallowed, warmer. She managed a tiny smile. "I am, thank you." He crossed to the armchair again, sat, gestured for her to sit opposite. She did, perched on the edge, hands folded tightly in her lap. "I need to tell you something," he said, "about Sophia's mother." Lena tensed. Fear flickered again. "She's not well," Vincent continued. "Hasn't been for a long time. Bipolar. Psychotic episodes. She took Sophia 3 days ago. I've had every man I trust looking for them. Tonight she left her in that alley. With a note. I don't know if she meant for Sophia to be found or—" His voice broke. He pressed a fist to his mouth. "I failed her. Both of them." Lena's heart tore. "You didn't know," she said softly. "You couldn't have known. I should have." Remorse choked him. "I built walls so high no one could get close enough to hurt me. And it hurt the people I loved anyway." Silence stretched. Lena watched him, saw the powerful man reduced to raw pain, and something inside her cracked open too. Compassion. Understanding. A dangerous warmth. Vincent looked at her, really looked. "You ran into that storm without a second thought. You gave your coat, your only coat, to a child you'd never seen. You stayed until she was safe. I've spent my life protecting what's mine with force. And you gave everything without asking for anything back." Tears filled her eyes again. I heard her cry. "I'm a mother. I couldn't walk away." Vincent leaned forward. "That's exactly why I can't let you walk away now." Her breath caught. "What do you mean, stay?" he said. The word came out rough, almost pleading. "With Sophia, help me care for her until she's stronger. Bring your children. Live in my house. No rent. No bills. Everything paid. Security. Warmth. Food. Whatever you need." Lena stared at him. Horror rose first, sharp, dizzying. This was too much. Too sudden. Too impossible. Then confusion. Then fear. Then quietly, traitorously, hope. "I can't," she whispered. "I have nothing to give you. I'm nobody." Vincent's eyes blazed. "You're everything." The words hung between them. Violent, beautiful, terrifying. Inside him, the conflict reached fever pitch. "You don't deserve her. You'll ruin her too." But the love burned hotter, passionate, consuming, refusing to be silenced. Lena's hands trembled in her lap. Tears slipped down her cheeks. She thought of the attic room, cold, moldy wind whistling through cracks. Thought of Mia's cough that never quite went away. Thought of Luca waking hungry at 3 a.m. because there was nothing left in the cupboard. She thought of Sophia calling her mama, and something inside her, small, stubborn, terrified, whispered yes. Vincent waited, breath held, heart tearing itself apart. Lena lifted her gaze to his, voice so soft it was almost lost. "I'll stay," she said. "For Sophia." Vincent exhaled a sound of pure relief and pure agony. He loved her more fiercely in that moment than he had ever loved anything in his life. And he knew with bone-deep certainty, that he would burn his entire world down before he let her suffer another cold night. Outside, the storm began to ease. Inside, a different storm had only just begun. The drive from Massachusetts General to Vincent Rossi's Beacon Hill townhouse took 40 minutes through streets still half buried in snow. Dawn had not yet broken on the 5th of October, 2025. The city lay hushed under a blanket of white streetlights, casting long orange pools across the drifts. Patrick drove the black SUV, armored tinted windows, heated seats that felt like sin against Lena's still chilled skin. She sat in the back with Mia and Luca, strapped into car seats Vincent had somehow procured in the hospital gift shop. The children slept, heads lolling against padded headrests, small hands clutching new stuffed animals, a soft gray elephant for Mia, a brown bear for Luca. Lena held Sophia on her lap. The little girl had been discharged at 5 a.m, temperature stable, no lasting damage beyond tender fingertips wrapped in gauze. Sophia clung to Lena's neck, face buried against her shoulder, breathing slow and even. Every few minutes she whispered "Mama," the word slipping out like a secret she was afraid to lose. Vincent sat beside them. He had not spoken since they left the hospital. His left hand rested on his knee, fingers occasionally flexing, as if testing the pain in his side. The bandage on his forearm had been changed. Fresh white gauze, no new blood. But Lena saw the way he breathed, shallow, controlled, hiding the ache. She wanted to ask about it, wanted to say something kind, but the words stuck in her throat. She was still coatless, still wearing the hospital robe under borrowed fleece, still dizzy from too little food and too much everything. The townhouse rose at the end of a quiet gaslit street, 4 stories of red brick, black shutters, wrought iron railings gleaming under fresh snow. Security cameras blinked discreetly from corners. 2 men in dark coats stood at the wrought iron gate. They nodded once as the SUV approached. The gate opened without a sound. Inside, the foyer alone was larger than Lena's entire attic apartment. Marble floors veined with gold, a crystal chandelier that caught the morning light like frozen fire, a sweeping staircase curved upward, carpeted in deep burgundy. The air smelled of polished wood, fresh lilies, and something warm cinnamon, perhaps from a kitchen she could not yet see. A woman waited at the foot of the stairs, 60-ish silver hair pinned neatly, wearing a soft gray cardigan over a cream blouse. She stepped forward with a gentle smile. Maria, Vincent said. This is Lena Moretti, and her children Mia and Luca. Sophia already knows her. Maria's eyes softened as she looked at Lena. Welcome, dear. I've prepared the guest wing on the 2nd floor. 2 connecting rooms, one for the children, one for you. Sophia's nursery is right beside yours. Lena could only nod. Her voice had gone somewhere far away. Maria led them upstairs. The hallway was lined with oil paintings, landscapes, portraits, none of them cold or ostentatious. Doors opened onto rooms that looked like magazine photographs, soft rugs, velvet armchairs, windows framed with heavy silk drapes. Maria opened the first door. The children's room was painted pale blue, with 2 small beds made up in crisp white linens. A toy chest overflowed with wooden blocks, stuffed animals' picture books. A rocking chair sat by the window overlooking the snow-covered garden. Mia's eyes widened. Luca reached for a plush giraffe on the nearest shelf. Your room is through here, Maria said, opening the connecting door. Lena stepped inside and stopped breathing. A king-sized bed with a down comforter thick enough to drown in. A walnut wardrobe larger than her old apartment's entire closet. A private bathroom, marble tile, clawfoot tub, rainfall shower. Fresh flowers on the nightstand. A tray with herbal tea still steaming. She turned in a slow circle. Dizziness swept her again, sharp, disorienting. The room smelled clean, warm, safe. It was too much. Tears rose so fast she could not stop them. She pressed a hand to her mouth, shoulders shaking. Maria touched her arm gently. It's all right, dear. Let it out. Lena shook her head. I don't belong here. This is someone else's life. Maria's voice was kind but firm. It's yours tonight, and for as long as you need it. Vincent appeared in the doorway. He had removed his shoes, stockinged feet silent on the carpet. He watched Lena cry and felt something inside him fracture. He crossed the room, stopped just short of her. Lena, she looked up, eyes red, lashes wet. I'm sorry. I'm just tired. He reached out slowly, giving her time to step back. She did not. His hand cupped her cheek, thumb brushing away a tear. The touch was light, reverent. You don't apologize, he said. Not to me. Not ever. Inside him, the conflict roared. You're pulling her into your world. The same world that nearly killed Sophia. The same world that's left blood on your hands and guilt in your chest every night. She's starving, exhausted. She's never known safety. And you think you can give it to her. You'll ruin her too. But the love would not listen. It burned fierce, possessive, aching. He wanted to wrap her in every blanket in the house, feed her every meal she had ever skipped, shield her from every cold wind that had ever cut her skin. He wanted to kneel and beg her forgiveness for every second she had suffered while he lived behind walls of money and power. He dropped his hand, stepped back. Rest. I'll have breakfast sent up. Then, we'll talk about Sophia. Lena nodded mutely. The morning passed in quiet fragments. Breakfast arrived on a cart, scrambled eggs, fresh fruit, warm croissants, milk for the children. Lena watched Mia and Luca eat like it was Christmas morning. She ate slowly, small bites, afraid her stomach would rebel after so long without. Vincent sat across the small table in her room, coffee-untouched eyes never leaving her. Mid-morning he excused himself. I need to check on something downstairs. Maria will stay with the children. Lena nodded. But 10 minutes later she heard raised voices from the foyer. She slipped to the top of the stairs, barefoot robe tied tight, Vincent stood at the front door facing two men she did not recognize. One wore a leather jacket scar across his cheek. The other, older, silver-haired, spoke in low, urgent tones. Delgado's men were spotted 2 blocks over. The older man said, "Watching the hospital. They know you were there. They know about the woman." Vincent's voice was ice. "Then make sure they understand the message. No one touches what's mine." The scarred man shifted. "Boss, if they push." Vincent stepped closer. "Then remind them what happens when they push. Quietly, cleanly. No blood on the street this time." Lena's heart hammered. She backed away, legs trembling. Horror rose, cold, numbing. This was the world she had stepped into. Power, threats, men who spoke of messages and no blood. She returned to the room, sat on the edge of the bed, hands shaking so hard she clasped them between her knees. Vincent found her there 20 minutes later. He stopped in the doorway, saw her face the fear in her eyes. "Lena," she looked up, voice small. "I heard you." Downstairs. He closed the door, crossed to her. Actually knelt, so their eyes were level. "I won't lie to you," he said. "My life isn't clean. There are people who want what I have, people who would use anyone close to me to hurt me, but I swear to you no one will touch you, or your children, or Sophia. I'll burn this city down before I let that happen." Tears filled her eyes again. "I'm scared. I know." His voice cracked. "And I hate that I'm the reason." Inside him, remorse tore deeper. "You brought her here, into danger, into your mess. She was safe in her cold attic, poor, yes, but alive. Now she's afraid because of you." Yet the love refused to yield. It surged, passionate, violent, protective. He reached for her hand. She let him take it. "I found something," she whispered. "In Sophia's blanket. When I was warming her at the hospital." She pulled a folded paper from the robe pocket, creased, damp but legible. Medical records, prescriptions, notes from a psychiatrist. Vincent took it. Read. His face went still. "Bipolar," he said quietly. "With psychotic features. She was on medication. Then..." She stopped. Lena nodded. "My mother, she had something like this. Toward the end. Voices. Paranoia. She thought we'd be better off without her. I read everything I could back then. Trying to understand." Vincent looked at her. Really looked. Saw the depth of quiet knowledge in her eyes. The compassion that had not been burned away by poverty or pain. "You knew," he said. "Even before I did." "I suspected," she whispered. "When Sophia was so scared. When she clung to me like I was safe." Vincent's hand tightened around hers. "I should have seen it. I should have forced her to get help. Instead, I let her push me away. Because it was easier." Tears slipped down his cheeks, silent, unashamed. Lena lifted her other hand, hesitated, then brushed the tear away with her thumb. "You can still help her now." He leaned into her touch, closed his eyes. "Stay," he said again. "Help me with Sophia. Help me understand what I missed. Help me be better." Lena's heart tore painful, beautiful. She thought of the attic, the hunger, the cold, the nights she had cried herself to sleep so the children wouldn't hear. She thought of Sophia's small hand in hers. She thought of Vincent kneeling before her, powerful and broken, looking at her as if she were the only light left in his world. "Yes," she whispered. Vincent opened his eyes. Love burned there, fierce, consuming, eternal. He rose slowly, pulled her to her feet, held her gently, reverently, forehead resting against hers. "Thank you," he breathed. Outside, snow began to fall again, soft, silent. Inside, 2 wounded hearts had just begun to heal. The first full day in Vincent Rossi's Beacon Hill townhouse passed like a dream Lena Moretti was afraid to wake from. Sunlight poured through tall windows onto hardwood floors polished to a soft gleam. The children explored cautiously, Mia, running her small fingers along velvet chair arms, Luca toddling after a wooden train set that had appeared overnight in the playroom. Sophia followed Lena everywhere, tiny hand clutching the hem of Lena's borrowed sweater, whispering "Mama" every few minutes, as if testing whether the word would still be answered. Lena moved through the hours in a haze of quiet shock. Breakfast had been served on fine china, fresh berries, warm oatmeal with cream eggs cooked exactly how each child liked them. She had watched Mia eat an entire bowl without once looking up to ask if there would be more. Luca had smeared yogurt across his cheeks and laughed a sound so bright it made Lena's chest ache. She herself had eaten slowly, afraid her stomach would rebel after so many skipped meals, but the food stayed down. Warm. Real. Enough. Maria had drawn a bath for her mid-morning, hot water scented with lavender oil, thick towels warmed on a heated rack. Lena had soaked until her fingers pruned, tears slipping silently into the water. She had never known luxury could feel like grief. Vincent stayed close. He canceled every meeting, every call. He sat on the floor with the children, letting Luca climb onto his lap, reading picture books in a low, steady voice that made even the simplest words sound like promises. When Sophia reached for him, he lifted her gently, careful of his bandaged side, and held her against his chest until she fell asleep. Lena watched from the doorway, heart tearing between wonder and terror. This powerful man, feared by half the city, looked small and vulnerable, cradling his daughter. And every time his gray eyes found hers across the room, something fierce and unspoken passed between them. By late afternoon, the snow had stopped. Vincent suggested they take the children to the small enclosed garden behind the house. Fresh air, he said. They need it. We all do. Lena hesitated. I don't have a coat. Vincent disappeared for a moment, returned with a beautiful camel-colored wool coat, new tag still attached, soft as a cloud. It's yours, he said simply. She stared at it. I can't. You already have, he interrupted gently. You gave yours to Sophia. Let me give this to you. She slipped it on. The wool settled around her like an embrace. Warmth she had forgotten existed. Tears pricked her eyes again. They stepped outside. The garden was small but perfect, stone paths cleared of snow, evergreen hedges dusted white, a small fountain frozen into stillness. The children ran ahead, Mia, laughing, Luca toddling after a stray leaf, skittering across the path. Sophia clung to Lena's hand, eyes wide at the brightness. Vincent walked beside Lena, close enough that their arms brushed. He said nothing at first. Then quietly, I've never seen Sophia smile like that. Not in months. Lena looked at him. She's healing, because she feels safe. Vincent's jaw tightened. She feels safe because of you. Inside him, the conflict raged fiercer than ever. You don't deserve this peace. You brought danger to her door. Delgado's men were seen near the hospital watching, waiting, and now she's here in your house wearing your coat, holding your daughter's hand. If they hurt her, if they touch one hair on her head, it will be because you let her in. Yet the love burned hotter. Every time she smiled at the children, every time she tucked a blanket around Sophia's shoulders, every soft thank you, she murmured. When Maria brought tea, it carved deeper into him. He wanted to stop time, keep her here forever, protect her from the cold, from hunger, from every unfair moment life had dealt her. He stopped walking, turned to her. Lena. She looked up, hazel eyes, guarded, curious, afraid. I need you to know something, he said. There are people, dangerous people, who want what I have. They've been testing boundaries since Sophia disappeared. Last night after you fell asleep, Barrett showed me photos, taken from outside the hospital fence, of you, holding Sophia, of you getting into my car. Lena's breath caught. Horror rose, cold, numbing. They saw me. Vincent nodded once. They know you matter to me now. The words landed like stones. She swayed. Vincent caught her elbow, gentle, steadying. No one will touch you, he said fiercely. I swear it. But fear clawed at her chest. She thought of Mia and Luca laughing in the garden, safe for the first time in years. Thought of the attic room, cold, dark, waiting if she left. Thought of how one photograph could end this fragile dream. Vincent pulled out his phone, showed her the image, grainy, taken from a distance. Lena carrying Sophia through the snow face, pale but determined, her own coat wrapped around the child. The sight of it, her own thin figure against the storm, made fresh tears rise. I can get you out, Vincent said quietly. New city, new names, money, enough to start over. No one would find you, ever. Lena stared at the photo, at herself, small, exhausted, but unbroken. She thought of the nights she had held Mia through fevers, with nothing but a wet cloth and whispered prayers. Thought of Luca waking hungry, reaching for her with trusting hands. Thought of Sophia calling her mama. She looked up at Vincent, tears streaming now. I'm scared, she whispered. I've never been safe. Not once. But they're happy here. For the first time. And Sophia, she needs me. Vincent's hand tightened on her arm. And you, he asked, voice raw. What do you need? Lena's breath hitched. I need to know they'll be warm. Fed. Loved. I need to know I'm not failing them anymore. Vincent exhaled a sound of pure pain. He stepped closer. Close enough that she felt the heat of him through the coat. You're not failing anyone, he said. You never have. Inside him, the war reached breaking point. Let her go. Keep her safe by sending her away. Or keep her here, risk everything, because losing her now would destroy what little soul you have left. He chose. Stay, he said. The word came out rough, almost desperate. Stay with us. Let me protect you. Let me give you what you've never had. Lena searched his face, saw the torment there, the love so fierce it bordered on agony. She thought of every cold night, every skipped meal, every time she had smiled through tears so the children wouldn't see her break. She thought of Vincent kneeling in the hospital, crying over his daughter, of the way he looked at her now like she was the only thing keeping him from falling apart. She lifted her hand, touched his cheek, timid, trembling. I'll stay, she whispered. For them, and maybe for me too. Vincent closed his eyes, leaned into her touch. A shudder ran through him. He pulled her into his arms slowly, carefully, giving her every chance to pull away. She did not. She rested her forehead against his chest, heard his heart hammering wild, unsteady, felt his arms tighten around her like he was afraid she would vanish. Thank you, he breathed into her hair. Thank you for trusting me. They stood like that snow falling softly around them, children laughing in the distance, while the world narrowed to the space between their bodies. Then Mia's voice rang out. Mama, look, snow angels. Lena pulled back, reluctant, flushed. Vincent let her go, but kept one hand on her lower back, protective, possessive. They walked toward the children together. But Vincent's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. Face hardening. Barrett's text, 2 of Delgado's men on the corner of Beacon and Charles. Watching the gate. Armed. Vincent's jaw clenched. He looked at Lena, saw the flicker of fear return to her eyes. He leaned close, whispered so only she could hear. Stay inside with Maria. Lock the doors. I'll handle this. Lena grabbed his sleeve. Don't go, please. Vincent covered her hand with his. I have to, but I'm coming back. To you. He kissed her forehead brief, burning, then strode toward the gate. Lena watched him go, heart tearing itself apart. Fear, hope, a love she did not yet dare name. Outside the iron fence, 2 men waited in long coats. Vincent approached alone, unarmed, but the air around him crackled with authority. Tell Delgado, Vincent said, voice low and lethal, the line stays where it is. Cross it and there will be consequences neither of us wants. One man smirked. He says you've gone soft. New weakness. Vincent stepped closer. Tell him the weakness is gone, and if he tests me again, he'll see exactly how strong I still am. The men exchanged glances, backed away slowly. Vincent watched them disappear into the snow. Then he turned, walked back to the garden. Lena waited at the French doors, children playing behind her safe and warm. He stepped inside, closed the distance, pulled her into his arms again. This time she did not hesitate. She clung to him, small, trembling, but certain. I'm here, he whispered. I'm not going anywhere. And in that moment, snow falling outside, children laughing within the rising threat felt distant. But the love between them burned brighter than ever, fierce, unstoppable, and terrifying in its power. The garden outing ended quietly, as the afternoon light faded on the 6th of October, 2025. Snow had begun again, soft, persistent flakes that muffled the city sounds beyond the high brick walls. Inside the townhouse, warmth wrapped around them like a promise. Maria had lit the fire in the family room. The children played on a thick wool rug with new toys, their laughter rising in small, bright bursts. Lena sat on the sofa. Sophia curled in her lap, tiny head resting against her chest. The little girl's breathing had steadied into the slow rhythm of trust. Lena stroked her dark curls absently, eyes distant. Vincent watched from the doorway. He had changed into a simple gray sweater and dark trousers. Casual, yet the fabric clung to his broad frame in a way that spoke of custom tailoring. The bandage on his forearm was fresh, no new blood, but Lena saw the careful way he moved, each step measured to hide the pull of old wounds. He leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, eyes never leaving her face. She felt his gaze, looked up. A small, shy smile curved her lips. She's almost asleep again. Vincent pushed off the frame, crossed the room, sat beside her close enough that their thighs brushed. You're good with her, he said quietly. Better than I ever was. Lena shook her head. She just needs someone who stays. Vincent's throat worked. I stayed away too long. Thought keeping distance kept her safe. I was wrong. Silence settled thick, heavy with unspoken regret. Lena's free hand rested on the sofa cushion between them. Vincent covered it with his own, slowly giving her every chance to pull away. She did not. His palm was warm, calloused in places she had not expected. The hand of a man who had once done more than sign papers. He turned her hand over, traced the cracks in her skin with his thumb, gentle, reverent. These hands, he murmured, they've carried so much. Lena's breath hitched. Tears welled. They've only carried what they had to. Vincent lifted her hand, pressed his lips to her knuckles, soft, lingering. Not anymore. The kiss seared her. Not just the touch, though, that alone sent heat racing through her, but the promise beneath it. She had never been touched with such care. Never been seen. Inside Vincent, the storm raged harder than ever. You're pulling her deeper. Every second she stays, the danger grows. Delgado's men are circling. Barrett saw another car idling 2 streets over this morning. They're waiting for weakness, and you're handing it to them on a silver platter. Yet the love refused retreat. It consumed him, fierce, burning, possessive. He wanted to shield her from every cold night, every empty cupboard, every tear she had shed alone. He wanted to give her the world he had built, and burn it all down if it ever threatened her. He released her hand. Stood. I need to make a call. Stay here with them. Maria's close. Lena nodded, voice soft. Be careful. Vincent paused at the door. Looked back at her, eyes dark with everything he could not yet say. Then he was gone. An hour later, the children were napping in their room. Lena sat by the window in the family room, watching snow fall in lazy spirals. The coat Vincent had given her lay draped over the armchair, camel wool, still carrying the faint scent of new fabric. She touched it absently, fingers tracing the smooth lining. A soft knock. Maria entered. Mr. Rossi asked me to tell you he'll be back soon. He had to step out for a meeting. Barrett's with him. Lena's stomach twisted. Is it dangerous? Maria hesitated. He's careful. Always. But Lena saw the worry in the older woman's eyes. 20 minutes later, the front gate buzzer sounded. Lena rose instinctively, heard Maria's footsteps hurry downstairs. Voices low, urgent. Then Maria's sharp intake of breath. Lena moved to the hallway, peered over the banister. 2 men stood just inside the foyer coats, dusted with snow, faces hard. One held a phone. The other scanned the room like a predator. Maria stood between them and the stairs, small but unyielding. Mr. Rossi isn't here, she said firmly. You can wait in the study or leave. The scarred man smirked. We're not here for him. We're here for the woman. Delgado wants a word. Lena's blood turned to ice. She stepped back, silent, instinctive. Her heart hammered so hard she felt dizzy. The room tilted. She gripped the railing to keep from falling. Maria's voice sharpened. You're not welcome here. Leave. Now. The older man stepped forward. Tell her to come down. Quietly. Or we make this loud. Lena's knees buckled. She slid down the wall back, pressed to the wallpaper, hands over her mouth to stifle the sob rising in her throat. Horror flooded her, cold, numbing. They knew she was here. They wanted her. Because of Vincent. Because she had stayed. Downstairs, Maria's voice rose. Get out, or I call the police. The scarred man laughed low, ugly. You think the police scare us. Footsteps on the stairs. Coming up. Lena scrambled to her feet, legs shaking. She ran toward the children's room, quiet, frantic. Pushed the door open. Mia and Luca slept peacefully. Sophia stirred, eyes fluttering open. Mama, she whispered. Lena knelt beside the crib. Shh, baby. Stay quiet. She gathered Sophia into her arms, back toward the connecting door to her own room, heart pounding so hard she could barely breathe. The footsteps reached the landing. Lena slipped into her bedroom, closed the door, locked it, backed away. Sophia clutched to her chest. A knock, sharp, demanding. Open the door. We just want to talk. Lena's vision blurred. Tears streamed down her face. She slid to the floor, back against the bed, rocking Sophia gently. It's okay, she whispered. Mama's here. Mama's here. Downstairs, the front door slammed open. Voices, Vincent's low, lethal. Get the hell out of my house. A scuffle, brief, tense. No shouts. No gunfire. Just the sound of bodies moving, furniture scraping, then silence. Minutes later, eternity footsteps on the stairs again. This time slower. Familiar. A soft knock. Lena. It's me. She crawled to the door. Unlocked it with shaking hands. Opened it. Vincent stood there, coat gone, shirt torn at the shoulder, fresh blood on his knuckles. Breathing hard. Eyes wild with fear and fury. He dropped to his knees in the doorway. Pulled her and Sophia into his arms, careful, desperate. They're gone, he whispered. They're gone. Lena sobbed against his chest, quiet, wrenching. They wanted me, they said. Delgado wants a word. Vincent's arms tightened. They won't touch you. Ever. Sophia whimpered. Vincent shifted, lifted her gently, cradled her between them. The 3 of them sat on the floor, door open, hallway light spilling in while the children slept in the next room. Vincent pressed his forehead to Lena's. I'm sorry, he choked. I brought this to you. Lena shook her head, tears soaking his shirt. You didn't. I chose to stay. Vincent pulled back just enough to look at her. His eyes, gray, stormy, were wet. You saved Sophia. You're saving me, and I'm putting you in danger. Lena lifted her hand, cupped his face. Then protect us, she whispered. Like you promised. Vincent exhaled a ragged sound. He kissed her palm, fierce, reverent, then leaned in. Their foreheads touched again. I will, he vowed. With everything I have. Inside him, the conflict reached its breaking point. You almost lost her tonight. Because of your life. Your choices. Your enemies. Send her away. Keep her safe by letting her go. But the love roared louder. It consumed every doubt, every guilt. He loved her passionately, violently, irrevocably, and he would tear his world apart before he let her suffer another moment of fear. He helped her to her feet, led her to the bed, sat beside her while she settled Sophia between them. The little girl sighed, content safe. Vincent took Lena's hand again, held it tight. I'm not letting you go, he said quietly. Not now, not ever. Lena looked at him, eyes shining with tears and something deeper, something that mirrored his own burning need. She leaned forward, slow, trembling, pressed her lips to his cheek, soft, grateful, terrified. Vincent turned his head. Their lips met gentle at first, then deeper, desperate, a kiss born of fear and relief, and a love too fierce to contain. When they parted, breathing hard, foreheads touching, Vincent whispered against her mouth, You're mine to protect now. And I will, no matter what it costs. Outside snow continued to fall, silent, relentless. Inside, two hearts had just bound themselves together, fragile, wounded, but unbreakable. And the storm, both outside and within, was far from over. The townhouse settled into uneasy quiet after the intruders left on the 7th of October, 2025. Snow continued to fall outside the tall windows, thick, relentless, burying the city in white silence. Inside, the fire in the family room had burned low. Embers glowed soft orange against the hearth. The children slept upstairs, Mia and Luca in their small beds, Sophia curled in the crib with the white wool blanket Lena had tucked around her earlier. Maria had retired to her quarters on the 3rd floor. The house felt vast, too quiet, too full of shadows. Lena sat on the edge of the sofa in the family room, knees drawn up, still wearing the camel coat Vincent had given her. She had not taken it off since the garden. The wool smelled faintly of him, clean, expensive, safe, and she clung to that scent like a lifeline. Her hands trembled in her lap. She clasped them together to hide it. Every creak of the old house made her flinch. Every distant car passing on Beacon Street made her heart stutter. Vincent had gone to his study after the confrontation at the gate. He had kissed her forehead brief, fierce, before disappearing down the hallway. Stay here, he had said. I need to make sure everything's secure. She had nodded, too numb to argue. Now the clock on the mantel ticked past 10 o'clock. Lena's eyes burned from lack of sleep. Her body ached from nights of thin mattresses and colder floors. She thought of the attic apartment wind whistling through cracks, radiator clanking uselessly, the children's small bodies pressed against hers for warmth. The memory felt like a knife twisting. She had lived that life for so long it had become normal. Now surrounded by warmth and safety, the contrast hurt more than the cold ever had. Footsteps in the hallway. Vincent appeared in the doorway, shirt untucked, hair disheveled, eyes shadowed. He carried 2 mugs of tea, steam curling in the dim light. He crossed to her, sat beside her, handed her 1 mug. Chamomile, he said quietly. Maria says it helps. Lena took it. The warmth seeped into her cracked palms. Thank you. Vincent watched her careful searching. You're shaking. She managed a small, trembling smile. I'm always shaking lately. He set his mug down, took hers from her hands, set it aside too. Then he pulled her gently against his side arm around her shoulders, careful of her fragility. She let him. Rested her head against his chest. Listened to his heartbeat, strong, steady, but faster than it should have been. I'm sorry, he whispered into her hair. For tonight. For all of it. Lena closed her eyes. It's not your fault. It is. His voice cracked. I should have sent you away the first night. Kept you safe by keeping you far from me. She lifted her head. Looked at him, really looked. Saw the torment carved into his features, guilt so deep it looked like physical pain, remorse that had lived in him for years. I chose to stay, she said softly. I chose you. Vincent's breath caught. He cupped her face, both hands now, thumbs brushing her cheekbones. You don't know what you're choosing. I know enough. The air between them thickened, heavy, electric. Vincent's eyes darkened gray, turning almost black. Inside him, the war reached its breaking point. Send her away. protect her by letting her go, or keep her risk everything because the thought of a world without her felt like dying. He leaned in, slow, giving her every chance to pull back. She did not. Their lips met soft at first. Tentative. A question. Then something broke. Vincent kissed her deeper, desperate, hungry years of restraint shattering in a single breath. Lena gasped against his mouth, shock, fear, need all crashing together. Her hands fisted in his shirt, pulled him closer. The kiss turned fierce, raw, consuming a collision of everything they had. Both held back. He lifted her effortless reverence, settled her across his lap. Her coat fell open. His hands slid beneath, finding the thin sweater the sharp edges of her ribs. He groaned low, pained at how fragile she felt, how much she had endured. Lena's fingers tangled in his hair. Tears slipped down her cheeks, mixing with the kiss. She kissed him back, fierce trembling, pouring every skipped meal, every cold night, every moment of loneliness into the press of her lips. Vincent broke away, first breathing hard, forehead resting against hers. "I love you," he rasped. "God help me, I love you so much, it hurts." Lena's breath hitched. "Vincent." He kissed her again, slower this time, deeper. His hands framed her face, gentle now worshipful. "I've never said that to anyone," he whispered. "Not like this. Not ever." She touched his cheek, timid, trembling. "I've never been loved like this." The words undid him. He buried his face in her neck, arms wrapping around her like iron bands. "I'll protect you," he vowed against her skin. "I'll give you everything. Everything you've never had." They stayed like that, wrapped in each other, while the fire died to embers. Quiet. Still. The world outside forgotten. Then Vincent's phone buzzed on the coffee table. He tensed, reached for it without letting her go. A text from Barrett. Lena felt him stiffen. "What is it?" Vincent's face went blank, dangerously blank. He showed her the screen. A single photo. Tony, Vincent's driver, his trusted lieutenant standing in a dimly lit parking garage, handing an envelope to a man with a scar across his cheek. The same man who had come to the house earlier. Lena's stomach dropped. Tony Vincent's hand shook. "He's been with me for 12 years. Betrayal hit him like a physical blow. He stood Lena sliding from his lap. He paced once, twice, then stopped. Fist clenched around the phone. "I trusted him," he said, voice low, lethal. "I trusted him with my daughter." "With you?" Lena rose, crossed to him, touched his arm. "Vincent." He turned, eyes blazing. "He sold us out. To Delgado. Every move, every weakness." Lena's knees nearly buckled. Horror rose cold, suffocating. The children. Vincent pulled her close, fierce, protective. "No one touches them. No one touches you." He kissed her again, hard, desperate. A claim. A vow. Then he stepped back. "Stay here. Lock the doors. I'm ending this tonight." Lena grabbed his sleeve. "Don't go alone." Vincent cupped her face. "I'm not losing you. Not now." He kissed her forehead, lingering, burning, then strode from the room. Lena stood frozen, heart tearing itself apart. Fear, love, a desperate, aching need she had never known. Minutes later, she heard the front door close. Heard the SUV start. She sank to the floor, back against the sofa, arms wrapped around herself. Tears came silently. She thought of the attic. The hunger, the cold. Thought of how she had survived it all alone. Now she was no longer alone. And the thought terrified her as much as it filled her with wonder. Upstairs, the children slept safe, warm, loved. Downstairs, Lena whispered into the empty room, "Please come back to me." Outside, snow fell harder. Inside Vincent's SUV, he gripped the wheel, knuckles white. Tony waited in the garage where the photo had been taken. Vincent stepped out alone. Tony saw him, face paling. Boss Vincent stopped 5 feet away. Voice low, deadly calm. Why, Tony swallowed. "Delgado." He offered more. "Said you were going soft. Said the woman was making you weak." Vincent's laugh was bitter. "And you believed him." Tony looked away. "I needed the money. My sister's sick. Hospital bills." Vincent stepped closer. "You sold my daughter's life for hospital bills." Tony flinched. "I never meant." Vincent's hand shot out, grabbed Tony's collar, slammed him against the concrete wall. "Not hard enough to injure. Hard enough to make the point. You meant every second you took that envelope," Vincent snarled. "Every second you watched my little girl sleep and planned to sell her out." Tony's eyes filled. "I'm sorry." Vincent released him, stepped back. "You're done," he said. "You walk away tonight. You disappear. If I ever see you again, if Delgado's men ever come near my family again, I'll make sure you regret every breath you take." Tony nodded, shaking. I'll go. I swear. Vincent watched him leave, headlights cutting through the snow. Then he stood alone in the garage, chest heaving. Betrayal burned. But love burned hotter. He got back in the SUV, drove home fast, reckless. Lena waited at the front door, robe loose, eyes red. Vincent stepped inside, closed the distance, pulled her into his arms, hard, desperate. She clung to him, sobbing against his chest. I'm here, he whispered. I'm here. He lifted her, carried her upstairs, laid her on the bed in her room, climbed in beside her, clothes and all. Held her close. They didn't speak, just held each other, breathing together while the snow fell outside. In the quiet between heartbeats, Vincent whispered against her hair, I love you. More than anything. More than my life. Lena pressed closer. I love you too. The words, simple, raw, shattered what remained of their walls. Passion ignited, fierce, consuming, unstoppable. They kissed, slow, deep, endless. Hands roamed, gentle, reverent, desperate. Clothes fell away slowly, carefully. Vincent made love to her like she was the only thing that mattered in the world. Lena gave herself to him, trusting, trembling whole. Afterward, they lay tangled, sweat-slick, breathing, hard foreheads pressed together. Vincent traced her cheek. You're safe now, he vowed. I'll make sure of it, no matter what it costs. Lena kissed him, soft, certain. I know. Outside, the storm began to ease. Inside, two hearts had just fused, broken, healed, unbreakable. And the betrayal, though it cut deep, could not touch what they had built in that single burning night. The morning after the betrayal broke on the 8th of October, 2025, with pale, watery sunlight filtering through the heavy drapes of the Beacon Hill townhouse. Snow had stopped falling sometime before dawn. The garden outside lay pristine and silent under a fresh white layer. Inside, the house smelled of coffee brewing downstairs, and the faint lavender from Maria's linens. The children still slept. Mia and Luca tangled together under one comforter. Sophia curled on her side with her thumb near her mouth. Lena had not slept. She sat in the rocking chair beside Sophia's crib, knees drawn up, arms wrapped around herself. The camel coat lay across her lap like a blanket. Her eyes were red-rimmed, swollen from silent crying. Every breath felt heavy, as if the air itself weighed more now. She kept replaying the night before, Vincent's mouth on hers, his hands gentle and desperate, the way he had whispered, I love you, against her skin like a confession and a vow. Then the phone buzzing. The photo, Tony's face in the dim garage light. The kiss that had felt like salvation turning cold in her chest when Vincent walked out the door. She touched her lips, still tender, still tasting faintly of him. Shame and wonder warred inside her. She had never been loved like that, fiercely, completely, as if she were the only thing anchoring someone to the earth. And she had never loved like this, raw, terrified, all-consuming. Yet the danger had followed them here. Because of her. Because she had stayed. Downstairs, Vincent stood at the kitchen island, coffee untouched, staring at his phone. Barrett had sent another update at 4 a.m. Tony had left the city. No sign of Delgado's men near the house. But the silence felt wrong too, still too watchful. Vincent's knuckles were bruised from the garage confrontation. His side ached where the old wound had pulled open again during the scuffle. He pressed a hand to it, felt the fresh bandage Maria had taped on at 2 o'clock when he returned. The pain grounded him, reminded him he was still alive, still capable of protecting what mattered, but inside remorse tore deeper than any bullet ever had. You let her see the worst of you last night. You took her in your arms, took her completely, and then walked out to face a traitor while she sat here alone, terrified. You promised safety. Instead, you brought more fear. He thought of her thin frame beneath him, ribs. He could count skin pale from too many skipped meals, hands cracked and trembling. Thought of how she had clung to him, trusting, giving, breaking open in ways no one had ever allowed her to before. And he had left her there vulnerable, exposed, because his world demanded it. The guilt was violent. It clawed at his ribs until he could barely breathe. Footsteps on the stairs. Lena appeared in the doorway, still in the borrowed sweater and soft pants, hair loose and tangled, eyes shadowed. She stopped when she saw him. Hesitated. Vincent straightened. Crossed to her in 3 strides. Pulled her into his arms without a word. She melted against him, small, trembling. Buried her face in his chest. You came back, she whispered. I will always come back to you, he said, against her hair. Voice rough. Always. They stood like that, silent, holding each other while the house woke slowly around them. Maria arrived with breakfast trays. The children came downstairs, Mia rubbing her eyes, Luca clutching his bear, Sophia reaching immediately for Lena. They ate together at the kitchen table. Simple food, made extraordinary by warmth and safety. Oatmeal with honey, fresh apples, sliced thin milk in small glasses. Lena watched the children eat, really eat, without once glancing up to see if there would be seconds. Tears slipped down her cheeks again. She wiped them away, quickly ashamed. Vincent saw, reached across the table, squeezed her hand. After breakfast, he took her aside into the small sunroom off the kitchen, where winter light poured through tall windows. The children stayed with Maria, laughing over a puzzle. Vincent closed the glass door, turned to Lena. "I need to tell you something," he said quietly. She nodded, braced. "Tony's gone. He left the city last night, but Delgado isn't finished. Barrett's intel says they're planning something bigger. They think you're my weakness now. They want to use you to force my hand." Lena's knees buckled. Vincent caught her, guided her to the cushioned bench by the window. She sat, hands shaking so hard she clasped them between her knees. "They'll come for the children," she whispered. Horror flooded her, cold, suffocating. Mia, Luca, Sophia, Vincent knelt in front of her, took both her hands. "They won't get near them. I swear it on my life." Lena searched his face, saw the torment there, the guilt that had carved permanent lines around his eyes. "This is because of me," she said, voice small, broken. "Because I stayed." Vincent shook his head fierce. "This is because of me. My choices. My world. Not you." He lifted her hands, kissed her knuckles one after the other. "You saved Sophia. You're saving me every single day, and I will not let them take that from us." Lena's tears fell faster. "I'm so scared." "I know." He rose, pulled her up with him, held her close. "But you're not alone anymore." They stood there, wrapped in each other while sunlight moved across the floor. Then the doorbell rang, sharp, insistent. Vincent tensed, kissed her forehead. "Stay here." He walked to the foyer, opened the door. A courier, uniformed, nervous, held a small package. "Delivery for Lena Moretti." Vincent took it, signed, closed the door, looked at the label. No return address. He carried it to the sunroom, set it on the table. Lena stared at it, heart hammering. "What is it?" Vincent opened it carefully. Inside a single photograph. Lena taken yesterday in the garden, holding Sophia, Mia and Luca playing in the background. On the back in black marker, "She's pretty. Be a shame if something happened to her kids." Lena's vision tunneled. The room spun. She staggered. Vincent caught her before she fell. "Lena." She pushed away, stumbled to the wall, pressed her back against it, slid down. Sobs tore from her, quiet, wrenching. Vincent dropped to his knees beside her, pulled her into his lap, held her while she shook. "I can't lose them," she gasped. "I can't, you won't." His voice was steel wrapped in velvet. "I promise you." He rocked her slow, steady while she cried. When the sobs eased, he lifted her chin, looked into her eyes. "I'm ending this today," he said. "I'm going to Delgado, face to face. No more games." Lena grabbed his shirt. "No, please. Take security. Take Barrett." Vincent kissed her hard, desperate. "I have to do this alone. If I bring an army, it becomes war. If I go alone, it's a conversation. And I'm very good at conversations." She searched his face, terrified, pleading. "Come back to me." Vincent pressed his forehead to hers. "I will, always." He stood, helped her up, led her to the sofa, sat her down, kissed her again, slow, deep, searing. "I love you," he whispered. "More than anything in this world." Then he left. Lena watched the front door close behind him. Minutes passed endless. Then Maria appeared, face pale. "Miss Lena, there's been an accident. Mr. Rossi's car. It was run off the road. He's hurt. Badly." Lena's world tilted. Numbness spread, cold complete. She stood, legs unsteady. "Where, Mass General?" "Emergency entrance." Lena moved automatic mechanical, grabbed the camel coat, ran to the garage. Patrick waited already in the driver's seat. They drove fast, silent. At the hospital, Barrett met her at the entrance, face grim. "He's in surgery," he said. "Stab wound. Deep. Lost a lot of blood." Lena swayed. Barrett caught her arm. "He asked for you," he said quietly. "Kept saying your name." They led her to the surgical waiting area, private, quiet. Lena sat, hands clasped so tight her nails drew blood. Hours passed. Then Harper emerged, scrub-stained face, tired but calm. "He's stable," she said. "The blade missed major organs. He'll need time, rest, antibiotics, but he'll recover." Lena's knees gave out. She sank into the chair, sobbing, relief and terror crashing together. They let her see him in recovery. Vincent lay pale against white sheets, IV lines, monitors beeping softly. Bandages covered his abdomen. His eyes fluttered open when she touched his hand. "Lena." She leaned over him, tears falling onto his chest. "I'm here." He squeezed her hand, weak but certain. The children. Safe. With Maria. Vincent exhaled, shuddering. Delgado's men ambushed me. I fought them off. Got away. But they wanted to send a message. Lena pressed her lips to his knuckles. You came back. Always. She stayed with him hour after hour, holding his hand while machines hummed and nurses came and went. When he woke again, stronger, clearer, he looked at her, really looked. You saved me, he whispered. Again. Lena shook her head. You saved yourself. Vincent lifted her hand, kissed it. No. You did. You gave me something to come back to. He pulled her closer, weak but determined. Kissed her slow, tender, full of everything he could not yet say. I'm getting out, he vowed against her lips. All of it. The deals, the territory, the shadows. I'm done. For you, for them, for us. Lena's tears fell anew, relief, love, fear, all tangled together. Vincent cupped her face. Marry me, he whispered. When this is over, when I'm clean, marry me, Lena. She stared at him, heart-shattering and healing at once. Yes, she breathed. Vincent smiled, small, pained, radiant. Then he pulled her down beside him, careful of the bandages, and held her while the monitors beeped softly around them. Outside snow began to melt. Inside wounds, old and new, began to heal. And the family they were building, fragile, fierce, chosen, grew stronger with every heartbeat. The hospital room at Massachusetts General remained quiet through the afternoon of the 9th of October, 2025. Sunlight slanting through half-closed blinds in thin golden bars across the white sheets. Vincent slept fitfully, pain medication pulling him under in waves, his hand never releasing Lena's. She had not moved from the chair beside his bed since they wheeled him from recovery. Her back ached from sitting upright for hours. Her eyes burned from staring at the slow rise and fall of his chest. Monitors beeped in soft, steady rhythm. Nurses came and went on silent shoes. Barrett stood guard outside the door, silent, immovable. Lena's thumb traced small circles on the back of Vincent's hand. His skin felt too cool. The IV line taped to his forearm looked stark against the fair skin she had kissed only hours ago. She kept replaying the moment Maria's voice had cracked on the phone. He's hurt. Badly. The words had punched the air from her lungs. She had run coat forgotten slippers, sliding on marble floors, had climbed into Patrick's SUV without thought, without breath. Now watching Vincent sleep, the terror that had numbed her began to thaw into something sharper. Something that cut. She thought of the children safe at the townhouse with Maria and extra security Barrett had summoned. Thought of how Mia had clung to her leg that morning, asking why Uncle Vince looked so tired. Thought of Luca's small hand reaching for Vincent's when he had bent to kiss them goodbye before leaving for his meeting with Delgado. Thought of Sophia whispering Mama in her sleep, trusting unafraid. And she thought of the photograph still in her coat pocket, the one of her in the garden with the children. The threat scrawled on the back in black marker. The unfairness of it burned hotter than any cold night she had ever endured. She had spent 29 years invisible, scrubbing blood from hospital floors, eating last, so her babies could have seconds, smiling through hunger pangs, so the children would not see her break. Now she was seen, targeted, loved, and the man who loved her lay here bleeding because of it. Vincent stirred. His eyes fluttered open, gray, clouded with pain and medication, but clearing when they found her face. Lena, he rasped. She leaned forward, brushing damp hair from his forehead. I'm here. He squeezed her hand, weak but deliberate. The children. Safe. Maria's with them. Barrett doubled the guards. Vincent exhaled, shuddering. Good. Silence stretched. Lena watched tears gather in the corners of his eyes, silent, unashamed. He turned his head away, ashamed of the weakness. Don't, she whispered. Don't hide from me. Vincent looked back at her, raw, broken. I almost lost everything last night. Almost lost you before I even had you. Lena's throat closed. You came back. Barely. His voice cracked. Delgado's men, they weren't there to talk. They wanted me gone. Wanted to send a message that no one, especially not me, gets to walk away clean. Lena's free hand pressed to her mouth. Horror rose again, cold, suffocating. They stabbed you. Vincent nodded once. I fought. Got away. But they know where you are now. Where the children are. Lena swayed, dizziness crashing over her. Vincent tightened his grip, steadying her even from the bed. I'm ending it, he said. Voice low. Lethal. Tonight. Lena's eyes widened. You can't. You're hurt. I have to. He pulled her closer, careful of the IV line. Delgado's holed up in an old warehouse on the waterfront. He thinks I'm too weak to come after him. He's wrong. Lena shook her head, tears falling faster. Take Barrett. Take men, Vincent cupped her face, thumb brushing away tears. If I bring an army, it becomes open war. Streets full of bodies. Innocents caught in the crossfire. If I go alone, it's personal. One conversation. One chance to end this without more blood. Lena searched his eyes, saw the torment there, the guilt that had lived in him for years, now sharpened into something desperate. You'll die. Vincent's jaw clenched. Not if I can help it. He pulled her down, kissed her slow, deep tasting of salt and fear and fierce burning love. Come back to me, she whispered against his lips. Vincent pressed his forehead to hers. Always. He left the hospital at dusk against medical advice against Barrett's protests. Dressed in dark clothes, simple, unremarkable. No coat, no weapon visible. Only the determination carved into every line of his face. Lena watched from the window as Patrick's SUV pulled away. Her heart tore itself apart, painful, relentless. She returned to Vincent's bedside, sat, held his pillow against her chest, breathed in the faint scent of him that lingered there. Hours passed. Then her phone buzzed a number she did not recognize. She answered, voice trembling. Hello, a man's voice low, calm. Miss Moretti, this is Marco Delgado. Your man is here. With me. He's alive. For now. Lena's world narrowed to a pinpoint. Numbness spread cold complete. What do you want? His empire. His territory. His surrender. In exchange, you get him back. And your children stay safe. Lena's hand shook so hard the phone nearly fell. You're lying. I'm not. He came alone. Brave. Stupid. He's bleeding again, worse this time. If you want him alive, you come to the warehouse on Northern Avenue. Alone. No police. No security. 1 hour. The line went dead. Lena stared at the phone breath, shallow vision tunneling. Horror clawed up her throat. She thought of Vincent alone, bleeding, fighting for her. Thought of the children safe but vulnerable if she did nothing. Thought of the attic room, cold, dark, hungry. Thought of how she had survived every unfair moment by protecting what mattered most. She stood legs unsteady, walked to the door. Barrett turned, saw her face. Miss Lena, I need to go, she said, voice small but certain. They have him. Barrett's face hardened. No, you stay here. We'll handle. Lena stepped past him, quiet, determined. He came for me. I'm going for him. She took the stairs, fast, silent. Slipped out a side exit into the cold night air. Hailed a cab on the street, hands shaking as she gave the address. The warehouse loomed on the waterfront, dark, abandoned windows broken like missing teeth. Lena stepped inside, heart hammering so hard she felt dizzy. The space smelled of salt and rust and old oil. Delgado waited in the center, flanked by 3 men. Vincent knelt before him, hands bound behind his back shirt, soaked with fresh blood, face pale but defiant. Lena, Vincent rasped, voice breaking. No, go back. Delgado smiled, slow, cruel. She came. Brave little thing. Lena walked forward, steps unsteady. Stopped 10 feet away. Let him go, she said, voice soft, trembling but clear. Delgado laughed. You think you can bargain, Lena lifted her chin. I think you want his empire. And I think you're afraid of what happens if you kill him here tonight. Delgado's smile faded. You know nothing. I know enough. Lena stepped closer. You think he's weak because he loves me, because he wants out. But love makes people stronger, not weaker. Vincent's eyes wide, horrified, locked on hers. Lena, don't. She ignored him, kept her gaze on Delgado. Let him go. Take me instead. Use me as leverage. But let him live. Delgado stared at her, surprised, then amused. You'd die for him, Lena's voice cracked. I'd do anything for him. Silence stretched thick, dangerous. Then Delgado nodded to his men. Take her. They moved. Vincent roared, lunging against his bonds. Lena backed away, heart pounding. One man grabbed her arm hard. She twisted, using the only thing she had knowledge from years cleaning trauma bays. She drove her elbow into his solar plexus, sharp, precise. He grunted, stumbled. The second man lunged. Lena ducked, grabbed a loose pipe from the floor, swung. It connected, dull thud against his shoulder. He staggered. Delgado pulled a gun, slow, deliberate. Vincent broke free ropes, slipping from wrists, slick with blood. He launched himself at Delgado, tackled him to the ground. The gun skittered across concrete. Lena ran, grabbed it, hands shaking so hard she nearly dropped it. She pointed it at the remaining man, voice trembling but steady. Stop! He froze. Vincent pinned Delgado's knee on his chest. It's over. Delgado laughed, harsh, breathless. You think this ends here? You think you can walk away? Vincent leaned closer. I already have. He stood slowly, painfully. Walked to Lena. Took the gun from her shaking hands. Unloaded it. Dropped it. Then he pulled her into his arms, hard, desperate. "You're insane," he whispered, voice breaking. "You came here. For me." Lena clung to him, sobbing. "I couldn't lose you." Vincent kissed her, fierce trembling blood and tears mixing on their lips. Sirens wailed in the distance, Barrett's doing no doubt. Delgado's men scattered, fleeing into the dark. Vincent held Lena tighter. "It's over," he whispered. "It's really over." They stood there wrapped in each other while police lights flashed through broken windows. Later, after statements, after stitches, after Vincent refused to leave her side, they returned to the townhouse. The children ran to them, Mia crying, Mama Luca reaching for Vincent, Sophia toddling behind. Vincent knelt despite the pain, pulled all three into his arms. Lena joined them, family, folding around them like wings. Vincent looked at Lena over the children's heads. "I'm done," he said quietly. "All of it. Legal, clean. For them. For you." Lena touched his cheek, tears falling anew. "I believe you." Vincent kissed her, soft, certain, while the children clung to them both. Outside, dawn broke, pale, hopeful. Inside, wounds old and new began to close. And the family they had chosen, forged in storm and fire, stood stronger than ever. 1 year had passed since that freezing October night in 2025, when a single cry in a Boston blizzard changed everything forever. The seasons had turned gently over Beacon Hill. Winter snows melted into spring blossoms. Summer sunlight poured through every tall window of the townhouse, and autumn leaves now drifted again across the garden paths like quiet memories. The iron gate still stood tall, the security cameras still blinked discreetly from stone corners, but the atmosphere inside had softened into something warmer, more human, more lived in. The children had grown Mia 6, now bright-eyed and fearless, reading chapter books aloud to anyone who would listen. Luca, 4, sturdy and affectionate, trailing after his big sisters with endless questions. Sophia, 4 as well, her dark curls longer, her laughter louder, calling Lena Mama without hesitation and Vincent Daddy with the same trusting certainty. The house echoed with their voices from morning until night, small feet running puzzles scattered across the rug, crayons rolling under furniture. It was no longer a fortress. It had become a home. Vincent Rossi had kept his promise. Every illegal thread he had once held in his hands had been carefully, painstakingly severed. The real estate holdings remained expanded now into affordable housing projects across South Boston and Dorchester places where families like Lena's once lived without heat or hope. The old operations had been dismantled not with violence but with paperwork, quiet negotiations, and the kind of ruthless precision only Vincent could wield when his family's future depended on it. Barrett still patrolled the grounds, but his radio calls were about school pickups and grocery runs, not threats. The armored SUV sat mostly in the garage now. Patrick drove the children to kindergarten in a sensible silver minivan. Vincent himself had changed in ways no one who knew the old him would have believed possible. The sharp suits were replaced most days by soft sweaters and jeans. The steel-gray eyes that once made men flinch now crinkled at the corners when Sophia climbed into his lap with a picture book. The man who had once controlled half the city's shadows now spent evenings helping with homework, reading bedtime stories in a low, patient voice, and washing dishes beside Lena, while Maria hummed old songs in the background. Lena Moretti had changed too. Nursing school had begun the previous January at Northeastern University, tuition paid in full, books and supplies delivered without her ever asking. She attended classes 3 mornings a week, while Maria watched the children. Vincent insisted on driving her himself those days, waiting outside the lecture hall with coffee and a proud, quiet smile. She wore simple scrubs now instead of custodian uniforms, still thin from years of hunger, still carrying the faint shadows of old exhaustion under her eyes, but her shoulders were straighter, her hands steadier. The cracks in her skin had healed. The hollows in her cheeks had filled. She laughed more freely. She slept through the night, yet the past never entirely left her. Some mornings she woke before dawn, heart racing, convinced the heat would shut off. The cupboards would be bare. The landlord's note would be taped to the door again. She would slip downstairs in the dark, open the refrigerator just to see shelves full of food, then stand there shivering in her robe until the panic eased. Vincent always found her silent footsteps, warm arms wrapping around her from behind. "You're safe," he would whisper against her hair. "You're home." And she would lean back into him, small, trembling, but believing. Their love had not dimmed. If anything, it had grown fiercer, deeper, more consuming with every shared sunrise. They made love in the quiet hours after the children slept, slowly, reverently, as if rediscovering each other every time. Vincent touched her like she was something sacred. Lena clung to him like he was the only solid thing she had ever known. There were nights when tears came, hers from old memories of cold and hunger, his from the guilt that still woke him, gasping, convinced he had failed her. They held each other through it, whispering promises into the dark. One crisp October afternoon, exactly 1 year after the blizzard, Vincent gathered everyone in the garden. The fountain had been turned back on. Water sparkled in the late sun. Leaves drifted lazily from the maple trees. Mia and Luca chased each other in circles, shrieking with laughter. Sophia toddled after them, clutching a bright red leaf. Vincent stood beside Lena on the stone path, simple gray sweater, dark trousers, no tie. He held a small velvet box in his palm. Lena's breath caught when she saw it. He turned to her eyes, soft, steady, shining. "I promised you," he said quietly, "that when I was clean, when everything was right, I would ask you properly." He opened the box. A slim white gold band rested inside, set with a single sapphire, clear and blue as a summer sky. No diamond, no ostentation, just quiet, enduring beauty. Vincent dropped to one knee, slowly, carefully, still favoring the side where the scar remained. "Lena Moretti," he said, voice thick, "you saved my daughter. You saved me. You showed me what love looks like when it costs everything and asks for nothing. I have nothing left to prove to the world. I only want to prove to you every day for the rest of my life that I am worthy of the trust you gave me when you had nothing left to give." Tears streamed down Lena's cheeks. She pressed trembling fingers to her mouth. Vincent held out the ring. "Will you marry me?" The garden went still, even the children paused, watching with wide eyes. Lena looked down at him, the powerful man who had once ruled with fear, now kneeling in fallen leaves, offering her everything he had left. She nodded, small at first, then stronger. "Yes," she whispered. Then louder, laughing through tears, "Yes." Vincent rose, slipped the ring onto her finger, pulled her into his arms, deep consuming kiss that tasted of salt and joy and promises kept. The children cheered, Mia jumping up and down, Luca clapping chubby hands, Sophia toddling over to hug their legs. They stood together, family wrapped in autumn light, while leaves drifted around them like quiet blessings. Later that evening, after baths, after stories, after tucking 3 small bodies into bed, Vincent and Lena sat on the back porch, wrapped in a shared blanket. Stars glittered above the city skyline. The fountain murmured softly. Vincent pulled her closer, kissed her temple. "I still wake up sometimes," he admitted quietly, "thinking I don't deserve this. Thinking I'll ruin it somehow." Lena turned in his arms, touched his cheek. "You already gave me more than I ever dreamed," she whispered. "Warmth, safety, love without conditions. That's what matters." Vincent's eyes glistened. "And you gave me redemption. You gave me a reason to be better." They kissed again, slow, deep, full of everything they had survived. In the stillness that followed, Lena rested her head on his shoulder. "Love doesn't care about skin color," she said softly. "It doesn't care about bank accounts or old scars or past mistakes. It only cares about showing up day after day, even when it's hard." Vincent pressed his lips to her hair. "And we showed up." They sat in quiet, condensed emotional stillness, 2 people once separated by worlds of wealth and poverty, now bound by something stronger than either. And in that moment the story drew its deepest lessons. K-knowledge teaches us that true compassion sees beyond appearances. K-knowledge reminds us that kindness can heal even the oldest wounds. K-knowledge shows that love grows strongest, where understanding replaces judgment. Lesson after lesson appears in the smallest acts of courage. Lesson after lesson teaches that no one is beyond redemption. Lesson after lesson proves that family is built by choice, not blood. Education of the heart matters more than any degree. Education in empathy changes entire lives. Education through hardship creates unbreakable bonds. We wish everyone watching this video good health, a joyful life, and daily peace filled with love and quiet happiness. If this story touched your heart, please tap like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to the YouTube channel Alex Truths, so you won't miss any of the engaging, heartfelt videos we share every day. How did this story land in your heart? Was there a moment that moved you deeply or reminded you of something in your own life? We truly want to hear what you felt. Every comment you leave helps us understand the emotions living inside our Rubian, the viewers' hearts. Please share your thoughts below. Goodbye for now, and we promise to see you again in the next video. Disclaimer: all stories on this channel are fictional and created solely for entertainment purposes. Any resemblance to real people, events, or places is purely coincidental.